It's actually a good way to introduce ourselves because we both met at school in CalArts, and as you can see, that was for CalArts. I think this is a really funny story to tell on how we first met. So I went there to get my master's in film directing, and I was in the cafeteria one day talking to my fellow classmates. It's a tiny class, it was 9 of us, and I was telling them, I'm working on a film and I need a doomsday keeper. So if you guys see somebody at school that looks like they could be a doomsday keeper, let me know. And they were like, well, what's a doomsday keeper? And I was like, well, he needs to carry a suitcase that has a clock who's responsible for the end of the world. When it hits midnight, then it's actually the apocalypse. And this was inspired by an article I'd read in the New York Times where there actually does exist a doomsday committee. And it's like representative by several countries in the world, and they meet once a year, and they actually move the clock depending on how close they think we are to the apocalypse. After 9/11 happened, they actually moved it the closest it's ever been to midnight. So now it stands at like 13 minutes till midnight for the apocalypse, which I thought was just amazing. I'm like, why isn't this a bigger news? This is insane. Like, this is so surreal. This is definitely coming out of like some sort of sci-fi film. So I thought that was gorgeous. So I was like, I'm going to make a film and kind of expand that. I'm going to have a doomsday keeper who carries around this clock, because I just imagine this guy who's responsible for this crazy clock. And so, we're sitting in the cafeteria, and they're like, okay, we'll keep our eyes open for a doomsday keeper. All of a sudden, one of my friends is like, oh my God, I see him. He's over there. And there walks in this tall, skinny guy in a full suit, a top hat, like really dressed up, and I look over and I'm like, he's perfect. Oh my God, okay, it's Timur. So Timur's sitting with this amazing, like, puppetry transvestite guy, right, in the cafeteria, and I go up to him and I'm like, excuse me, sir, I'm a film major, and I was wondering if I could use you as my doomsday keeper. And so he's kind of hesitant at first. He's like, I'm not sure. What do I have to do? I'm like, well, you might have to slap some nuns' butts. Okay, yes, I'll do it. So that was the beginning of our collaboration. From then on, it was a very beautiful relationship. We realized he has a different side of the story. He likes to say that I went over and was like, hi, you're attractive. But I didn't say that. I really just said I needed to take her. But that was when we first met, and we shot that film. That was great. And then after that, I got to know him a bit more. We became friends, found out that he was directing an opera at school. And so he asked me to make some of the videos and projections for his opera. I did that, and then after that, we decided to collaborate.
That's exactly actually when we were beginning to explore sort of the film and how it could be projected onto the sets without really getting into the film segments itself. And I felt like, because Sandra herself was coming from the background of being a painter, and the first, I think, 1 or 2 years she actually spent painting
on film.
Painting on film, painting often, so also doing those sketches, and then when she began to work on actually figuring out her own formula to process film, and how much of that to add in order to get more textures, whether it was by dragging the film on the floor. And I
figured out a way to like attach it to my car, and I'd drive around with the film attached to my car to get like real scratches and stuff. The professors at school would get upset with me because we had flatbeds we'd edit on, and I figured out a way to attach sandpaper so that as it went through, the sandpaper was scratching it. I just wanted texture on absolutely everything in the world. And Timur kind of came from also equally in his world of music and opera. He works with a lot of different textures sonically.
Right.
You incorporate them.
In fact, that's what we always say. One of our topic of discussions is, I would always talk to her why in films this score music often can be so plain, not very interesting, and sometimes it can be so powerful and full of. We talked about how filmmakers are educated in order to hear music and process it, and how then they adapt. Like they could really be attached to something immensely challenging and complex visually, and yet musically they would want some really pure, nice melody in the background, with the producer saying, no, that's too much, no, tone it down. Whether coming from me, I would always tell Sandra, no, more, just like throw some more sounds, weird sounds there. And which kind of elevated us toward creating this music video, which turned out to be a 9-10 minutes film. We're not going to show you the film version today. It's just going to be a music video, Autumn, and it's kind of based on our research on Russian constructivism, and that actually was Sandra's idea. she was inspired by kind of a Soviet avant-garde art movement, which existed for a very, very little period of time. Everything was possible. Tatlin, Rodchenko, Meyerhold, and so taking all those sketches and then trying to again figure out the way how unconventionally tell the story, where the relationship between the form and content is indeterminate, and we were inspired also by Vadim Kozin, who was this Russian cabaret singer who was tremendously popular in the 30s, and all until the still people know of him, but who was unfortunately put into labor camp and spent many years. It was never officially rehabilitated by the Soviet government to this day. But his songs are well known to people of former USSR, you can even say that. And one of those songs, Autumn, Осень, that I recorded, and Sandra thought it would be really great, interesting relationship between the song itself, which is very ardent, passionate song with what was happening at that time. Interestingly enough, Kozin himself did not like contemporary music. I think he went on the record in his diaries that he hated it. So I think he probably would have hated what we also created with the music video, because he didn't really like the in the modernism and that time, what was happening in the 20s, the Russian constructivism. But Sandra researched it, then we took the research, long story short, assigned some different values, and then it created this kind of interesting story.
Created a film as resourcefully as we possibly could. We did the whole artist thing of, who do we know that owns a donkey or any animals? Oh, this person owns a donkey. Let's use that donkey as a prop in this. And applied for grants, got some grants to fund it. CalArts was really great also in helping sponsor the project. And we made a short film that got picked up also for distribution in Canada, and then ended up being shown at LACMA and a few other exhibitions. It's neat because I feel like in my world of cinema, I seem to be accepted more by galleries and museums than I am by the industry. It's kind of ironic because my day job is in the industry, but everything I create I kind of loathe. So it's like, just my job. But it's a beautiful thing to just be able to play with your imagination and just kind of go into places that feel really poetically different. Like I always feel like I'm kind of visually creating poetry rather than making some sort of narrative, linear storyline. It's all about emotions and moods and what transcends and what penetrates you and what you experience from it. So it's not really about getting a clear message across, as long as you kind of go through this experience and leave with a different emotion afterwards. And that's consistently what I'm playing with. It's that human condition and what can I push and where can I take you with it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely in this video.
And just the side note, the English text is not the original text, which you'll hear. You'll hear actually the not even translation, but kind of a newly written text, which was inspired by Kozin's own diaries of the 50s and all that suffering that he went through. And so the music video itself turned out to be quite depressing and grim in a sense. And outside of Alexei and Olga, the Russian representatives here, so I think most of Russians hated it, and when it was shown in Russia, and we got some terrible comments on YouTube, which is another outlet to...
They were very offended. It was hard for me to understand why they were so offended. Timur had to really explain it to me.
It was taken out of YouTube
so,
many times.
Yeah, we've had to keep reposting it because they keep flagging it, and I'm like, why? Because Americans love it. I think Kozin is a very sensitive subject in Russia. And the way that we portrayed him is not the way that they'd like to see him.
I think the song by itself, it's such a...
Exactly, but people don't want to... I've learned people don't want to experience that. They don't want to experience these heavy feelings,
There's that, there's the
That's
juxtaposition of this beautiful song against this really kind of depressing imagery, which we'll just show. I think that's just the easiest way to do it.
Thank you.
So this is...
Go ahead.
I'm not going to tell what's happening.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Let's get this, there it is. That's going to work, right?
And Sandra really, really wanted them to be also texture as much as she can. So there was that approach of actually painting all of our actors, and which I think they hated because we could
Some liked it. Some liked it.
Some liked it too much.
No, some really, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but you can see some of the influences of maybe not like direct, but definitely and I think in general that's what Sandra does in her music. In her music, in her films, that she likes to research different areas and talk about what inspires you in your films.
I'm not very good at talking, so please give me some point something. Oh, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I guess it's researching several different films. Or different styles. I like things that are very stylized, so it's always just digging into like some sort of like aesthetic, some sort of mood. It's always about moods, yes.
Well, what are your influences?
Lots of them. I mean, early cinema. I love early cinema. Different filmmakers, writers. There's the structuralist.
I'm thinking of film more. I mean, these are really incredibly ornate, expressionistic. It's expressionistic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that comes from, I did study a little bit of painting in undergrad. And I was a painting major and I was obsessed with the Rococo period. I love decadence, over the top, opulence. Like, really, I love when things are ornate, when they're gold leafed. And so I come from a love of opera and grandeur and theatricality. As a child, my parents would take me to the opera a lot, actually, so ironically. And, I met Timur and I was like, opera, wow, I love this. Okay.
It's not fun.
Well, I love it. I love the theatricality of it. Like the Ring Cycle, when I saw the Ring Cycle, my brain was just going crazy with what Fryer did because it's so beautiful. It's many different things. I mean, I find things that I love. Edgar Allan Poe, Pablo Neruda, I love their poetry. And then I just incorporate it. Like you're a magnet. You find things you like, you obsess over them, and you put them in your little box of inspirations, and you constantly refer to them. And I have like a box full of just a million things that I just consistently refer to. And when I find something new, I shove it in there and probably overdo my obsession with it. So yeah, Parajanov, who made Colored Pomegranates. I love he choreographs everybody and creates like archetypes. Like you could pause on a frame and it's just like the most beautiful composition and the most beautiful acting. And it's all like choreographed in sync, especially his later films. Jodorowsky, I don't know if you've seen Holy Mountain and El Topo, Santa Sangre, like he made a bunch of gorgeous films that kind of deal with the metaphysical aspects. He deals with the tarot a lot, and he kind of interprets them and brings them into his movies, kind of explaining again like the human condition.
I think, in fact, those two movies probably are Color of Pomegranate and Holy Mountain slightly influenced the development of Autumn.
Yeah, I think they influence everything I kind of make in some weird way. Like I'm always thinking about them in my head. Yeah. And then Timur is a big muse for me also, since we were talking about muses earlier. Yeah.
And I just wanted to come in and kind of bring Timur in
Yes.
my connection. Yeah, I know Timur is an opera singer and all this stuff, and we've gone on and on and on tonight, and it's been wonderful, and I love what they do together. And I know Timur originally from opera, and I was thinking that tonight we could go out with a song. Are you up to that, Timur, to pull something off?
Do you have? Yeah, of course.
And I'll just tell you a little bit.
We have tracks.
Timur has been going off. He started Timur and the Dime Museum, and they are doing this kind of post-apocalyptic, glam, decadent stage show and music. And very often there's a lot of stuff by this guy, Christian Hoffman, who I love, who did music for Klaus Nomi, and he was in the Monks when, in the punk era. And now he's still doing great music, just some of my favorite music songs, ever. Yeah. And I think, can you pull something off?
Yeah,
like
of
that?
course.
Okay.
I'll just say a few words about the song Dana asked me to sing, and I'm happy to do it. And on this note, just thank you so much also for hosting us here, Dana. And thank you all of you who came out and talked before us. It just really was very, very fascinating to just learn from each other. And this song is called Total Eclipse, and it was one of the hits that Christian Hoffman wrote for Klaus Nomi. And for those of you who don't know Klaus Nomi, he was this kind of extravagant, out-of-this-world countertenor who was completely untrained, but nevertheless has this beautiful voice and the falsetto voice and great range. And he was part of the kind of like a neo-wave sort of 80s period, along with Anne Magnuson and exactly. Of course, both of them are now very much involved in films, and we know a lot about them. Klaus Nomi died very early on, so we didn't get a chance to really experience him fully. Yeah, he was the person who actually met him. And so you can imagine what kind of person. And Christian Hoffman wrote the song. He wrote several songs for him, and this is one of them, Total Eclipse, and that's what I'm going to sing for you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to master this machine here.
And I could, I guess, say a few...
You have to warm up.
Huh?
Just going to jump in.
It's nova realistic.
Yeah.
Nova realistic. And normally, I perform in different costumes, and imagine 7 people, a little band playing with you. So, but they're all right there. That's it.
You're in it.
And it's our version of the song. And this little introduction, so I can talk during that. Big shots argue about what they've got, making the planet so hot, hot as a Holocaust. Blow up, everything's gonna go up, even if you don't show up in your schmeezlocost. Total eclipse, just a total eclipse, just a total eclipse of the sun. Can't come to grips with a total eclipse, just a slip of your lips and you're gone. Very apocalyptic song, isn't it? And Klaus Nomi would do it like this. Fall out, nobody's left to crawl out. If someone calls, we're all out, turning into French fries. Last dance, let the entire cast dance to the dismembered blast dance as we get vaporized. Total eclipse, just a total eclipse, just a total eclipse of the sun. Can't come to grips with a total eclipse, just a slip of your lips and you're gone. Unfortunately, Klaus Nomi is also gone now. And we're all going to be too pretty soon, because this is kind of a global warming song. It was written in the 80s, beginning of the 80s. David Bowie heard it, went crazy. Brought Klaus Nomi with him on Saturday Night Live, copied him a lot. Total eclipse, just a total eclipse, just a total eclipse of the sun.